Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, romantics. I'm here with Aurora Palit to talk about her new contemporary romance, Honey and Heat. Welcome to the show, Aurora.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. Well, Honey and Heat is what we call in the business a sophomore book. Many find it very hard to write, but I believe I read you had a very different experience. Is that right, or am I getting you confused with another author?
No, I really enjoyed writing Honey and Heat, and I think it's because Cynthia, the female lead, she pushed the plot forward in a very seamless way. And once I had kind of fleshed out her love interest, it just worked. It would I don't want to say these things because I know so many people struggle with the second book. I don't want to be that person, but this one just kind of flowed. It was very enjoyable to write.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that because it does hurt my heart a little bit when I hear about authors struggling with that second book. But there always seems to be a book an author struggles with,
Oh
whether
yeah.
it's the second or the ninth. So your time is probably coming. So
Oh, I'm sure I'm overdue for, karma.
not to put a damper on the subject here, but yeah, you'll probably get it sooner or later. All right. Well, why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and your writing journey, please?
Sure. So I'm based out of Canada, which is pretty exciting for me because I'm writing books with a Canadian setting, which I think is, something new and sometimes interesting for American readers or global readers in general. And it's a point of pride to kind of have these multicultural romances set in Canada, representing my country. I am South Asian, I'm Bengali. So far with my two books, Cynthia and Rohit do not represent Bengali culture specifically, but I do enjoy at doing my part for representation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I started writing in 2017, so I'm still fairly new to the game, and I more started out of curiosity. I love reading, I love telling stories. I feel like there's just so many inside me, and I was talking about them to a coworker of mine, and she in her loving way was pretty much like, just shut up and write the stories. So I did. Um, yeah, and everything just kind of, I never really pictured myself on a publishing journey exactly, but things kind of fall into place sometimes, especially when you have such a strong community behind you and
Yeah.
friends who push you forward, which I really attribute a lot of what's happened to me to some of my writing friends. They just kept pushing me to, submit to this program. I got into a Pitch Wars mentorship program and it just things took off, working with the right people who saw something in my story just helped me put it all together. And now here I am with a sophomore book. It's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you have this wonderful support system that kept giving you a little bit of nudge here and there until you got the book published. So that's wonderful. Now, you had mentioned that Cynthia and Rohit don't maybe represent the culture, but I felt like I got at least part of some of the cultural expectations from Cynthia's
Mhm.
parents. Is that do I have that right?
Yeah, I think there's definitely there. And in this story, Rohit is also an immigrant, so there's that aspect as well.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
do think, compared to my first book, Sunshine and Spice, which really dives into cultural expectations and what it's like to be, a South Asian person slash Canadian, that was very culture based. I do feel some of Cynthia's personal struggles, it's not just a South Asian thing, it's a woman thing as well.
Hmm.
So I do feel it's a little bit broader in that way, but you're right. Like a lot of her family is living in India,
Yeah.
have these expectations, and her parents are immigrants, so it translates in that way too.
Yeah, yeah, and even like you said, Rohit's his family isn't putting that pressure on him, but he feels that pressure of taking care of his family, which sounds like it's very much ingrained into the culture. So yeah, uh, that was really nice to hear because sometimes I think that we forget that here in the States, as far as taking care of our elder and and that sort of thing. So I think I
Yeah.
loved reading about that.
Yeah, that's a very strong cultural value in South Asian culture. Family first, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
one's parents and family, especially if you are given opportunities that maybe not all your family can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So it certainly is, and to people's demise as well, because in
Yeah.
an American culture, it's very much the individual comes first, and that can be hard for someone living
Yeah.
overseas to come to terms with.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever worry that that part of the South Asian culture will slip away a little bit, or do you think that it's so ingrained that it'll be there for, at least two or three more generations before you start feeling that American impact?
I think it really depends on how a family chooses to raise the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can find a balance between the two, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But there's a guilt associated with only thinking about yourself, but at the same time, sometimes self-preservation is the most important thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a struggle, and I don't know. I coming from a family who is very tight knit,
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it would be like to, be raised in a culture where my parents were like, just worry about yourself. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I would love to experience the other side just to get a taste of it, really.
Right, right, right. All right. Well, before we get too much more into it, why don't you give us just kind of the quick overview, summary, whatever you're comfortable telling us about this story?
Sure. So Honey and Heat is Cynthia's story at the forefront. She's been working towards proving herself as successor to her father's multi-million business. And it's kind of been a life goal of hers to take over the company. And she thinks she's on the right track and finds out, unexpectedly that her father has already earmarked the position. And the guy he's earmarked it for happens to be a one night stand she enjoyed once upon a time without really realizing the consequences. And this story follows, their their workplace romance. They're eventually teamed up together because the company falls under public scrutiny and they need to save the company's reputation. And in true romance fashion, they're going to fall for each other.
Absolutely. Always an HEA at the end. It's a
Of
safe zone,
course.
right?
Yes.
Well, from their meet cute to the end, Rohit never really wavered in his affection for Cynthia, despite her ice princess tendencies. Is that the type of hero you set out to write in this book, or is that how he kind of played out as you drafted the story? Do you recall?
I think in my mind, I view Cynthia as such a powerhouse of a main character. She's kind of aggressive, very assertive. She's messy, she's not always your most likable
Yeah.
female main character. And I just felt she deserved a solid male lead. So him being unwavering, like he pines for her from start to finish. He loves her, and it kind of plays into this. He's a fan of rom-coms. And
Yes, I love that.
and
I did.
in rom-coms, when they kindly finally get to the I love you, and usually the guy is like, I loved you from the moment I met you. That's Rohit in a nutshell. It's kind
Yes,
of a
yeah,
nod to that trope.
yeah,
So he just seemed like the right fit for her, and I felt she deserved someone like him for
yeah.
all that she does and brings to the table.
Yeah, yeah, because he believed in her, and I think that she struggled with that a little bit with her, well, actually with both parents, but maybe more so with her father, because they worked together and everything. So I thought that was a nice
Mhm.
contrast that you had there. So, Cynthia and Rohit had a couple of pretty big hurdles to clear before they found their HEA, their happily ever after. Did you get nervous about how you were going to make it right for both of them at the end of the story, or were you confident you could nail the landing?
I'm never confident. And I think, some people think, oh, romances are so easy because you
Mm,
know what the
yeah.
final HEA has to be. But it's really hard to get there, especially if you have, these external conflicts and high stakes. And if I'm going to be honest, I hate writing the third act. I love the first and second. The third act is always like, well, good luck.
Got to tie it all up.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I kind of feel like the romance community sometimes wants a really pretty bow on everything. They want the
Mhm.
happily ever after. They also want all the conflicts to just be neat and have their own happily ever afters. I'm aware I don't always deliver. It's a little bit purposeful on my part. I kind of like this open-ended feeling for some of the other conflicts. I think it inspires people to think a little bit and hope for the best. I'm hoping that's what people walk away with, but it's a lot. I hate the
Yeah.
third act so much.
All right, great. Well, one of the things that I like to dive into on this show is finding the story's undercurrent with the author, and it's that second beating heart of the story that tends to flow beneath the lover's journey, and it also helps propel the story forward. What undercurrent do you think is flowing beneath Cynthia and Rohit's story?
I think there's a few in this one. I dive a little bit into workplace politics for women, what it's like to work in a boys' club, and
Yeah.
how women, I think, take on a lot, especially now, especially working women. There's a drive to be perfect, always prepared, ahead of the game, which Cynthia very much personifies. But underneath all that, I don't know, this is, a life lesson I learned in like grade 11 English, which is that moment where you realize your parents aren't perfect people. I'm kind of reversing that a little bit because I think there's also a moment where parents maybe realize their children are not perfect, especially someone like Cynthia. She was very close to her father for a long time. We dig into that into the story, and she was high performing, had a lot in
Mm.
common with him. Her parents were very proud of her, especially her father. And then, she has a little bit of a hiccup when she falls in love for the first time and lets a lot of things slide. And their relationship never really recovers from that. And I think it sets a little bit of a tone of how her father fails to build a relationship with the adult version of her, the one that makes mistakes, is exploring sexuality in a way maybe he doesn't understand or pair with his daughter in a healthy way. I think it's a struggle learning how to like understand your children's development, and maybe they're growing in ways that you didn't foresee. And that's kind of that undercurrent in this novel. She struggles with a relationship with her father. She wants one, but neither are quite sure how to get there given the past and, you know, where forgiveness was warranted, but maybe never offered.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I absolutely agree with that. I think that's the perfect answer, I guess, for that question because I felt that too as I was reading the book, and yeah, yeah. No, I think that was really well put. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll change gears just a little bit here and we'll talk about those things that romance readers love is tropes. And I always like to ask the author to name off just two or three tropes that you think are maybe the big ones for the story. You'd mentioned one night stand, so we can throw that one in there. That's always a big one. What else can you think of?
I think right now, and I think this trend is very hot, which is happy for me, my happy circumstance. Black cat and golden retriever. I think Rohit is like the goldenest retriever that ever lived.
That is funny because that's one I haven't come across yet. So I've got to write that one. Black cat and golden retriever. Okay. All
Yes.
right.
And then there, there's the workplace romance, forced proximity, which I know are beloved tropes.
Yes.
And yeah, I think those are kind of the main ones. He falls first in his golden retriever way. I know some people love a man that falls, and he falls hard. So
Yes. All right. Great. Have you read a romance book recently that you loved and would recommend?
yes. And I find the books that I love, I have to recommend with like a grain of salt because they had such an impact on me. And this is one of them. I recently read A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of her work, but they always just reach right inside of me. And I think about it for days. I want to reread passages, but I feel like I need a little bit of time to recover. Uh, her prose is just everything. And this one is, I finished it a couple days ago and it's still sitting with me. And I've recommended it to people already, but I'm also like, be ready because there's some
Okay.
hard topics in there as well.
Okay. All right. Great. I love it. I will add that to the show notes. Wonderful. All right. Well, besides reading, what is your favorite thing to do when you're not writing?
Oh, I wish I had a great, quirky, and fun answer. But unfortunately, right now it's fitness. I'm really loving walks, which is so boring, and like going to the gym. But what I'm finding is, writing is hard on the body. Like you're sitting all day, your hips get tight, my lower back has suffered, and I hate saying these things. It reminds me that I'm aging, but I'm really like finding my quality of life is improving by just getting away from the computer and moving my body. So that's probably my favorite form of self-care right now is just to exercise and maybe get out of my head a little bit because when you're writing, you're very much have so many ideas and there's a little bit of clarity too in exercising. So that would be it.
Okay, no, I love that. I sometimes I'll ask authors what they do to, take care of themselves because sitting at a desk, it can be very, very tough on the body. Different body parts, not just the back, the wrists, just all sorts of
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And so, yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's always lovely to get some tips on how we can get through the day a little bit easier as authors and writers. All right. Well, before we go, can you give us a hint on what's coming up next for you?
Well, as far as, writing under contract and not sleeping, this is kind of a little bit of a turning point. I am working on a third novel right now. It's another standalone, although there is a little bit of interconnectedness with Honey and Heat. So if this ever hits bookshelves, um, it'll be kind of fun to see people make the connections. It's a romance, still a rom-com, but it has a little bit of light speculative elements, which is outside of my realm, so I'm enjoying exploring that. And it involves a, a woman finding herself, finding her voice, learning to make space for herself in her family, and a sassy grandmother with a lot of opinions.
I love a good sassy grandma.
Right? They're so fun.
I do. I do. I can't help it. All right. Well, folks, when this episode airs, Honey and Heat will be out, so be sure to order your copy today. You can check out Aurora's website at aurorapalit.com. Aurora, what social media platform are you most active on?
I would say I can only handle one, and that's Instagram. So you
Okay.
can find me. My handle is at Aurora Palit, and that's probably where you'll get the most up-to-date information from me.
All right, perfect. Nice and easy. All right, Aurora. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was great to meet you, and thank you for this fun contemporary romance read. It was great. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really wonderful being on your show.
Ah, my pleasure. Many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at traceydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure, everyone.